So thank you again. Happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I'm really, really excited to be with you all today to celebrate the 10th anniversary. And we have a very special guest today who will be joining um, our co-founder of Diamond. So first, I'd like to introduce Joe Devon, who's the co-founder of Diamond, as well as the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So welcome, Joe. As a lot of you know, Joe is a serial entrepreneur who has really been pioneering the tech ecosystem as well as championing the accessibility community. So not only is he the co-founder of Diamond, an inclusive digital agency, but he's co-founded Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And today we are so excited to have his co-founder, Jennison Ascension, join us as well. So Joe, I'm going to hand this over to you. And again, congratulations, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you, Natasha, and happy 10th Global Accessibility Awareness Day, everyone. I'd like to invite Jennison to turn on his video. So hopefully that will happen pretty easily. And thank you all for your patience as we were trying to get the captioning going on. There we go. Hi, Jennison.
Hey, happy GAAD, Joe.
Thank you. Happy GAAD. So this is Jennison Ascension. One day he happened to be home on a Saturday night, and he was looking at Twitter and he saw an auto tweet. What were you thinking when that happened, Jennison?
I was like, this was an amazing opportunity that was just dropped in my lap. I had been on my own initiatives back in Toronto, working on different ways to get engineers and designers interested in accessibility. And I learned if you serve pizza and invite people for a free event on a Saturday, that could happen. So I started something called Accessibility Camp Toronto in 2011. And then I saw your blog post, and the rest is history. You asked for a global day to talk about and learn about accessibility. And I think we got you where we both together got you your wish.
That's for sure. So before I ask my next question, I just want to tell the audience, I'd like to make this pretty interactive. So please do go to the Q&A down at the bottom and type your questions, and we'll take them during the conversation. And you can also get the closed captions by clicking on CC live transcript down at the bottom. So it's the 10th anniversary, Jennison. How has your day been so far?
Sleepless, to be honest. But it's fun, right? This is the day where you and I kind of, if we weren't cloning ourselves already before, we were certainly doing it now. I had my first thing was actually with Code for San Jose yesterday. It was a fireside chat talking about GAAD and all good stuff. And then this morning, it really started with Hong Kong at 2:30 in the morning, and then moved on to Toronto, something here in the US, South Africa, US again, and the United Kingdom, and here I am with you now.
Yes, quite some madness. I'm on my 6th event right now. So yes, I totally feel you. So would you ever have imagined that it would take off the way it has? What I've been telling folks today is it was like we imagined that there was a train that we were pushing with our hands, and it turned into a Lamborghini that just took off without us almost, and we have to keep up with it. What are you feeling from that?
No, ditto, man. This is so amazing, and just I can't grasp the impact, and I use that not in a braggadocious way, but just to hear people saying like how much they're enjoying the day. Some are using it as an excuse to get accessibility in front of people who wouldn't ordinarily think or talk about it, which is that is our ideal audience. But just the whole buzz that's happening around this day, year over year, language over language, moving this conversation along. It's, to me, I'm with you, man. Like, I can't believe it. My body will believe it once I'm able to get back to regular sleep. But other than that, this is amazing. And who would have thought, right? Once you and I got onto the phone to actually talk for the first time to figure things out and hammer out the first GAD, like nothing was stopping it after that.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you a question. News. Do you have any news about this day that you want to share?
Well, there's two pieces of news I could share, both equally impactful. So let me start with the biggie that you and I have always heard things like it should be more than just a day, the GAD. It should be thought about all the time, right?
Yep.
So you and I have talked about this for a while, but we are so happy and so excited to let people know that we have launched the GAAD Foundation. So if people go over to GAAD.foundation, you can learn more about what we're planning to do there. But in short, the headline here is that we are looking to make accessibility the first class citizen that it is, alongside things like security and privacy. We want accessibility, and we demand that accessibility be a core requirement when it comes to the development of either digital products or technology in general. Now, you already, Joe, kind of kicked things off last year with the GAD Pledge, which was amazingly successful. We had Facebook take the GAD Pledge on behalf of the React Native framework. And this was all about having these open source frameworks make a public declaration and a public commitment to making accessibility a core value of their project. Because these projects are what are powering many of the websites out there today. There's a depressing statistic right now that says among the top million websites out there, what is it, 97.4% today still have at least one accessibility error on their homepage. So we're trying to do something about that. So React Native took the pledge last year, and we are pleased to announce that this year, the Ember.js framework has taken the baton. So we have those two announcements, which I think are really exciting. That which is the GAD Foundation, that which is the Ember.js framework taking the GAD pledge. And we're going to be tweeting about a GAD tail. There's something fun, right? nothing to do with tech, but for people who want an adult beverage to cheers. Stay tuned for the ingredients to have the GAD tail, which we will be toasting with on a meetup that's going to be taking place at 4:30 p.m. Pacific today. Use your favorite search engine and look for A11Y Bay Meetup, and join us tonight for some more fun and frivolity after this amazing webinar we're doing right now.
And you mentioned you're going to be tweeting it out. So what is your Twitter handle, just so everybody can follow you?
My Twitter handle is @Jennison, which is JENNIS as in Sam ON. They should also be following you, if not already, at Joe Devon. And we've got the Global Accessibility Awareness Day Twitter handle, which is @GBLA11YDAY.
Great. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a test, but I have the answer just in case, so I'm not putting you too much on the spot. The vision and mission of the GAD Foundation. Don't kill me.
So the mission of the foundation is we are looking to disrupt the product development lifecycle for digital products and technology in such a way that accessibility becomes a core requirement. I know that that's not the actual words. We have them written
No, you're
down.
pretty close. The only thing you missed was culture. That we
yes, but that's the most important part. We want to disrupt the culture of these processes. So that is our mission.
Yes, you want me to do the vision?
Please.
Accessibility to be built into the product development lifecycle for every technology and digital product present in our daily lives. Does that sound familiar?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I think so, and I think we're gonna be more successful than people realize. We're so determined. This is gonna be great. So we've got Ember, we've got Facebook, and I think we're gonna really. I know that there's a lot of other companies out there that have asked about it, so we have a lot of folks in the backlog. So watch out for the GAAD pledge. Now, what about? And I'm gonna go to the questions. We already have a bunch of questions, but
Right.
first I want to ask you, what are the GAADs?
The GAADs. So the GAADs are going to be awards that we will, people will get nominated and all that good stuff, but it's essentially, it's targeted at the mainstream tech community. And we want to salute those individuals, those projects, those companies that are living and breathing the GAAD mission and vision. And so we will invite you to join us in the Silicon Valley next year for our first GAADs. We will be taking the GAADs every year to a different tech hub all over the US and as we go on throughout the world, wherever tech is being talked about and happening, we want to bring the GAADs there. Again, it's all about just bringing the visibility of accessibility, digital access and inclusion. So next year, our first GAADs will be in the Silicon Valley. So stay tuned for information about that.
Perfect. Now let's go to some questions. Well, first there's a statement from my buddy Eric Hoffer who said E-GAADs 10th. It is the 10th. Then our friend Dora Maria Abreu, and I hope I...
Oh, from Amazon.
Yes, correct. Happy 10th anniversary. My question is one thing you would love for everyone to embark on to commemorate this anniversary.
Is that to both of us?
Yes.
Go first.
One thing I'd love to embark on to commemorate the anniversary. Gosh, now I know why you passed it to me. That's a tough question.
Well, I've got an answer ready, but I want you to give the answer because you've been putting me in the hot seat.
All right. To embark on, I would say, just do something for GAAD if you aren't already, because it's so easy. Just check out the website or mobile app that you or your company is doing. Just try to access it with a keyboard only. And if it's not accessible, just make some moves, ask some questions to try and see if you can improve the situation at home, really. Because if everybody did that, then we'd live in a much more accessible world.
So to commemorate GAAD, what I would like everyone to do who is at all just curious about getting into the digital accessibility industry, or who is working on a project where they would like to see how they could implement accessibility, shoot me a LinkedIn message and let's spend half an hour together, or an hour actually, and let's talk through it, because that's where the pedal hits the road, or the pedal hits the metal. Is that the phrase? The metal hits the road. Is understanding what needs to be done, and I am more than happy to do that. I want another way to commemorate GAAD. Hey, why don't you click on the donate button on the GAAD.Foundation webpage? We would certainly appreciate it. And the third thing is ask Joe or I to come talk to your executives if you're getting pushback on accessibility. That's one thing that we'd be happy to do, time, of course, permitting. But that's part of, we're not just saying to people, do it. We want to be part of the solution as well. So if you need our help, reach out to us and let's see what we can do. And that's the best way you could commemorate GAAD, is to actually take action. Don't just think about accessibility. Don't just consider accessibility. Be intentional about it. Take an explicit action. And if that means reaching out to one or both of us to figure out what that action might be, then do it.
Great answer. Now we have a question from Phil Jenkins of IBM.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Phil. If we changed, yeah, IBM had a nice announcement today. I think there's a big update to IBM's accessibility toolkit.
Nice.
So yeah, check that out. So Phil asks, if we change the title from Global Accessibility Awareness Day to Global Accessibility Action Day, would you be offended?
Joe and I came up with an event called Global Accessibility Awareness Day that we think has stood the test of time over the last 10 years. So that's gonna be my answer.
Yeah, I love the thought behind it. I would just say that we pretty much get this pretty often where people have have ideas of what to do. And what I'd really love to say is it's all about vision and community. So start something. If you feel like there's something missing out there, just start something. I never thought that a blog post would turn into this. So you just never know. If you really hit the mark, it'll take off. So let's see, what else have we got here? Christopher Dobson, do you feel that publishers?
Wow. Can we stop for a second? Christopher
Yeah.
Dobson was one of our earliest. I think, Christopher, you were involved at the very first GAAD back in 2012. If you're the same Christopher Dobson working at Harper College, maybe? Used to? Maybe still? Anyway, ask the question.
All right.
Sorry, Joe.
Do you feel that publishers of higher education have improved the accessibility of their course materials and online learning products?
So based on what we've seen, and not by firsthand actually testing ourselves, I'd certainly say that a lot of the e-learning vendors, if you will, have made significant announcements on or around GAAD. So I would say that if they're willing to put their themselves out in the public like that and make statements about improvements they've done or things that they're doing at their companies to make accessibility important and something that matters, I would say yes, there has been a lot of work. Are there still situations where like nothing's perfect, right? And all those companies are on a journey. So I would say that some may be further ahead than others, but I do think that e-learning companies in particular understand, particularly during COVID, that this stuff is vital. People need to learn whether they're in school or whether they're taking corporate learning.
Great answer. And he has a part two, which is the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely raised the need for digital accessibility, question mark.
Yes.
Yes. There you have it. Now we have, oops, I clicked the wrong button. Now we have Dave Bryant, and he says, hi, Joe and Jennison, happy 10th. What books would you recommend on accessibility?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's been some really great books out there, more on the usability side of things. Joe, do you have any in particular? I'm going to confess, I honestly haven't had time in the last couple of years, and I know this sounds awful, but I haven't had time to read any books on accessibility that are out there. So we invite people to actually contribute there in the chat if they're able to contribute names of books. I know Kat Holmes has put out an amazing book on usability. And I'm sorry, Kat, that I don't remember the title, but if you use your favorite search engine and type Kat Holmes usability book, I am 99% sure you're going to find it.
There you go. So from the audience, we've got Sterling Baldwin says Inclusive Components by Helen Pickering.
Oh, yes.
That's definitely on my list.
Yeah.
We can probably just look at our at our participants, at our audience for some good books. Like Lainey says, congratulations, Jennison and Joe, love the new foundation. Wow. Well, Lainey wrote a book that really changed my thinking about so much. And this is what I love to share with people. What GAAD has taught me is that if you have a great vision, you can really change things. And Lainey has changed the game when it comes to lawsuits, because her book on structured negotiation is a book that says, hey, you know, the lawsuits are not really helping the situation, because in the past, these lawsuits would just extort basically a certain amount of money from a company, but not do anything to engage the company in making a fundamental cultural change. And by doing structured negotiation, instead of all this bad PR, Lainey connects up the respected accessibility folks as well as users of the company in order to help the corporations work together with their users who are left out of the conversation because of inaccessibility. And then as a result of this, Lots of companies have improved their accessibility, have improved their culture. It's been a tremendous success. And among lawyers, it's really well respected. I've shared it with lots of folks. So that would be one. I don't know if Frances West is here, but she's the first chief accessibility officer for IBM, and she also has a book. It also escapes me my name. It escapes me because I got so much going on today, but that's another one that's really cool and that you should check out. All right, let's see, a question for you. So we want to change the culture of digital product development. Are we crazy, Jennison? Can we succeed with this? And if so, how are we going to do it?
The way we're going to do it is by engaging, like I said before, engaging influencers from every walk of life who are themselves tech nerds, whether they're leaders in tech, or whether they're your everyday athlete or musician or artist who cares about technology and who are willing to talk about it with us and with their followers to make accessibility something that's cool, that's interesting, that matters. So yes, we are going to be successful once that happens. And of course, through people taking the GAAD pledge, for people getting involved in the GAAD Exchange, for people taking us up on our offer with the GAAD Speakers Fund, for people winning GAADies, all of that, and every other program that we're going to be rolling out over the years of the foundation. We will absolutely make this happen.
I love it. And please keep the questions coming. I'm going to intersperse them, but Jennison, you just brought up the GAAD Speakers Fund. What's that?
So the GAAD Speakers Fund is going to be an opportunity. So one of the biggest things, and let's talk about like life post-pandemic, where people will begin traveling again and attending conferences and all that kind of stuff. So we know that there's a lot of tech conferences out there, and people who work in digital accessibility and people with disabilities or impairments aren't the richest people in the world. Unfortunately, we don't, like, the pay and accessibility isn't always that high, and people with disabilities or impairments aren't necessarily all working, but they have things to say and contribute. So for those people who submit papers or presentations to things like South by Southwest or any large event anywhere in the world, if they need help to attend and they've had their talk accepted, we will help them do that. Not only does it allow that conversation to happen at a mainstream tech event, but it allows that conversation and that engagement and intermingling to happen on that side. On the other side, similarly, your average everyday designer, developer, product manager, tech person wants to present at an accessibility event or at a disability related event. Similar issue. Not everyone's made of money, but we don't want that to be the issue for the conversation to happen and for people to meet where they are. So that's what the Speakers Fund is really about. It's about helping the conversation continue in the professional spaces where these conferences, where these events happen. And it's not only the presentation itself, it's those accidental conversations that are going to happen over lunch, in a hallway, in an elevator. We're going to help raise visibility of accessibility and inclusive design on all sectors that way.
I love that answer. All right, back to the questions. This is just a statement from Richard Ray. Happy GAADversary. I'm so proud to have met Joe in the city council back in 2015. And I will say, no, Richard Ray, I am so proud to have met you, because Richard Ray, for those who don't know, has done incredible work in bringing awareness to the importance that when you're delivering emergency notifications, that it be accessible, that there's ASL, that there's captions, that every aspect of accessibility is there. And we've proven this in, I've been speaking to Richard about this before the pandemic, and the pandemic has really proven it out, because if you want to give instructions that impact the safety of everyone, then you need to make it accessible, because otherwise folks who aren't able to access that information will go out without a mask. They won't know what to do. And this is just proven so prescient. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jennison? in terms of the emergency services.
My gosh, yes. This whole, we are living in a world now where disasters, whether they be man-made or natural, are happening, unfortunately, more often than they should. And we are using our mobile devices, we are using all manner of ways to communicate to the world about how do we react to these disasters. And if that stuff is not accessible, that is a life or death situation. So if websites with that information are not accessible, if there are PDFs with information on where to go are not accessible, if notifications are being given vocally and not in text form, again, life or death. Accessibility is life or death.
Yeah. And wouldn't you say that's true for just apps in general? I remember once going to an event. I don't remember if you were there, but there were a lot of folks that were blind, and it was a rough side of town. And then they all ordered Ubers, and I was like, what if Uber just breaks down and doesn't work while you're sitting there in a restaurant? Even an update, isn't it important for there to be accessibility? Like, do you have any thoughts as a
like anything to do with communicating changes or notifications of like system interruptions and stuff. I think that's actually universal. That's not only about people with disabilities. I think everyone needs to have that information. I love, the most ironic thing is when you get, when your system's shut down and people are sending emails to let you know that the systems have shut down. But if you can't get to your email, how are you going to know that that's happened?
Yeah, exactly. And have you had any funny situations happen to you where something, an update broke, your plans?
No, I've been lucky. I haven't had that type of situation yet.
That's good. But you're also very resilient. So it might have affected some other people worse than you, and not, you may not even think about it, right? Has anything happened today beyond our announcements that you found particularly interesting?
I was very heartened to get a shout out from Tim Cook over at Apple. Apple has been a proud supporter of Global Accessibility Awareness Day for years. But if I could make it local, executives at LinkedIn have been congratulating me about the foundation and such over the LinkedIn platform, which again is amazing that my leaders at LinkedIn understand how important accessibility is and stand behind it by publicly, recognizing Global Accessibility Awareness Day and GAAD and the foundation and all that kind of good stuff. And there's a lot of just amazing, neat events that are going on. Too many to name here, because if you name one, you've got to name them all. But there's just been the usual, Joe, I think you'll agree with me, people are so creative, right? In terms of the types of events, particularly like when we weren't in COVID, people were holding bike-a-thons and things like that to raise visibility. But it's even online, people have found creative ways to do things as well. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, and I've gotten DMs and text messages from folks at companies that might not want to mention that they're doing events publicly, but they're working really hard internally to improve the accessibility. Have you received any of those?
Absolutely. Similar to you, companies that want to remain, they want to remain quiet, but they want to let us know that they're committed. So quietly committed to accessibility, which we'll take, right?
Absolutely.
But yes, I've certainly received those as well.
Yeah, I'd rather see a commitment to accessibility as a core value than a PR, right? Not that there's anything wrong with PR if it's real and genuine, but the commitment is the more important thing, right? So let me go to the next question. Kirsten, she says, thanks for offering your help to push for accessibility. Might take you up on that, wink. And then what are some of the strategies, arguments, proposals you use to convince stakeholders to implement accessibility measures, tools, policies, etc.?
So one of the conversations we're having, particularly as we focus our attention at LinkedIn with product managers and getting them tuned up on accessibility, is this concept of solve for one, extend to many. So one example of this is we introduced font scaling on our flagship mobile apps and also on our website, but focus on for example, on our iOS app. So we introduced dynamic type on there. And we knew that 15% of the world's population self-identifies as having a disability or impairment. We know that's a low number, but we'll go with it. So we figured that the number of people of our members who would use the font scaling would be less than that 15% because it would go to tell, right? Because that's everyone. Yep. When we did the metrics and we looked at who is like how many people were enabling dynamic type, we since to learn that it was closer to 30% on our iOS app. So what this meant was that we were getting more people who don't necessarily self-identify as having a disability or impairment, but they might be, they might have a situational reason why they want to enlarge the font size. They might just be getting old like me and certain body parts stop working as effectively. So they want to bump up the font. So really stop thinking about accessibility as something you're doing for people with disabilities or impairments. There's a whole host of other audiences that benefit. So again, solve for one, extend to many.
Exactly. And what I've been telling people lately is you have the WHO statistics on people who identify as having disabilities is 15%. And then you're looking at how many people have a visual impairment, 2.2 billion, that's 28%. And people over 50, that's 34%. So I'm kind of shocked by your 30% number, but at the same time, it makes sense because it affects a lot more people than you would expect. So Jennison, I think there's one other item in our foundation that we haven't spoken about yet, and I think that was the GAAD Exchange.
Yeah.
You want to describe that?
Sure. So one of the things that I have heard so I've been working in digital accessibility full-time since 2006. And one of the comments I often hear is, I wish I could just get a hold of someone with a disability or impairment and just find out how they use technology. Like, how do they use it? What works for them? What are their favorite apps? All that kind of stuff. And the reality is, people with disabilities or impairments, even though there's 15% of the world's population out there, they can't easily be found. So we are going to create a platform where your everyday engineer, product manager, product leader, designer, if they want to make that connection with someone with a disability or impairment, to just talk about how they use technology, the GAAD Exchange is going to enable that conversation to happen. So we're really excited for that. You're going to see a common theme in all the work we're doing within the GAAD Foundation. It's about widening the conversation. So whether it's through conferences and stuff that we're going to be enabling through the GAAD Speakers Fund, or the GAAD Exchange, where it's the everyday conversation to help just people understand, what, you don't use a mouse? How do you operate? How are you using my mobile app if you can't use your fingers? Like, how do you do that? Those types of questions are going to be answered by real people. And this is not to replace the need for doing user research studies or user testing that still needs to happen. And there's some great organizations out there that provide that. But for your everyday, hey, how are you? How do you use your tech conversations? We're going to enable that conversation to happen through the GAAD Exchange.
I love it. All right, I'm going to go a little bit quicker through the rest of the questions. I hope we get to everything. First, a statement from Karen Myers. Thanks for joining us, Karen, from the W3C.
Oh, hey, Karen.
Yeah, so she mentions a book by our friend Regine Gilbert, Inclusive Design for a Digital World, Designing with Accessibility in Mind. I actually have already bought that book. I just have not read it yet. Then we've got Irene. Hi, Joe and Jennison. Thank you both for supporting accessibility in Africa. While understanding the value, how can African businesses advance accessibility knowing that budgets will always be an issue? Want me to repeat that?
No, I want you to take a crack at it.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I've been saying this year that we need to stop thinking about budget. Even though budget is important, we need to think about expertise. And the expertise, when you're building digital products, it will cost you the same, and I'm using this example over and over again, If you're a designer and you're doing an online, offline, red, green indicator, if you add the text, then people who are colorblind will be able to tell the difference. And if you don't, that red and green to someone who's colorblind is gray and gray. So making sure to improve the expertise of the people that are building digital products will make them far more accessible. And so I'd really focus on that and focus on the educational aspect.
If I could add, one of the themes that I've been trying to drive home is, look, accessibility has been around since 98, 99, when the first accessibility guidelines came out. Unless you haven't learned about accessibility before, we'll grant you like one pass. But after that, if you are knowingly putting out code into production that does not meet the web content accessibility guidelines, you are in essence introducing tech debt that one day your customer, if you work for an agency, or your company, if you're in-house design develop, you're introducing that tech debt that's going to need to be cleaned up eventually. And we know, Joe and I both know, and those people who work in accessibility know how painful it can be to retrofit accessibility after the fact. So there's enough tooling out there now through test automation. There's enough ways to at least get started on making your stuff accessible from the beginning. We realize that it might not all be able to get done, but to flout it, and in essence, again, by introducing tech debt, you are making the financial cost that much higher going forward.
Truth over there. Now, Sandhya Sanjeevi, I'm sure I butchered your name, I apologize. What is being done to educate recent college graduates on accessibility? Is accessibility incorporated into the curriculum of software engineering? Jennison, who is a board member of Teach Access and uniquely qualified to answer that.
So I'm going to demote myself and say I am not a board member, but I am an active member through my representing LinkedIn with Teach Access.
Okay.
If you go to teachaccess.org, you can learn more. This is a US-based effort for now, and we are on a quest by 2030 to have 1 million college students who study computer science, engineering, design, or related programs to have some fundamental knowledge about accessibility. We currently have programs called Silicon Valley Study Away, which invites those students to engage with accessibility-minded companies and to find out how we do things around accessibility. We also have a faculty grant program where we give $5,000, this year was $5,000 grants to faculty members who were willing to not create a new course from scratch, but to integrate accessibility into an existing course. There's no need to create a special course on accessibility. We want accessibility to be integrated into, software development 101 or design 101, all the way up to the master classes, so that it's not seen as this separate thing that needs to be done separately. It's something that needs to be done as part and parcel of your design, your build. And so that's what Teach Access is about. Right now, like I said, it's a US effort. We know that other folks, Detlev, I believe it was Detlev Fisher, and I'm sorry if it wasn't, and I've just attributed to someone else. But someone at SAP was talking to a university class in Germany about accessibility to get their students interested. So it is happening elsewhere. We'd love to know where else it's happening. The next frontier for Teach Access to tackle are those boot camps, because those are becoming so popular out there to train people on UX or engineering, and then they get hired by tech company X or Y with little to no accessibility knowledge. So we're going to close that gap as well through Teach Access.
Thank you. Now, Judith Blankman, I did not forget you. I did not skip your question. I kind of wanted to save it for the latter part of the conversation. So I'll ask you now, Jennison. I've noticed job listings posted recently for Director of Inclusive Design. Curious what your thoughts are about the level of engagement in accessibility expected from these roles versus other focuses, ethnicity, gender, and equity? You want me to repeat it or you got it?
I think I have it. I think I have it. At the director level, I think it could be appropriate to have someone who has oversight over inclusive design with a capital I. But we all know that under that director, rightly, there should be people whose focuses are on each individual area. You cannot expect one person to be successful if it's one person who has to deal with all spectrums of inclusivity. It's just impossible. It's like anything else. So I would say if the director is directing a whole program who has direct reports that are handling all the individual lowercase i's, yes, there is a chance for success. If this one person is supposed to handle 5 dimensions or even 3 or 2 dimensions of inclusive design or inclusivity, that's a tougher haul. The more you add on, the less successful I think someone is going to be. If they're told their title is Director of Inclusive Design and you're supposed to just focus on accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities, that's one thing. But like I said, once you increase the scope, like everything else, it just becomes that much more difficult.
Thanks, Jennison. Now I'm going to answer the next one from Krista Greer. Can we please have a similar day more geared for higher education a different time of year? May is so tough. Many schools want to do GAAD celebrations, but they're wrapping up a semester and or many faculty are off contract. And my answer to that one is there's been a little movement here by Jennison and my buddy Jeremy Seda. He's been doing a yearly, I think it's called Pave the Way to GAAD. Am I remembering this right, Jennison?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pave the Way to GAAD, something like that. Hook up with
North Idaho College.
Yeah, North Idaho College. They're starting this, and I think this is a great idea. There's a day already, so check it out with Jeremy, and he'll give you some advice on that. Thanks for the question. It is a great one. Next one is Daryl Adams, and we're running out of time, so I'm gonna just.
Yeah, we are.
Daryl Adams from Intel, Joe Ennison. So you kind of mashed together. Congrats on 10 years. Looking ahead, do you see an opportunity for an official in-person or hybrid GAAD event post-COVID? And I'm going to say that we're planning one at Diamond because we've moved our state of accessibility report to December because it's already crazy as it is in GAAD. So we will be releasing that in December. And assuming that everything is great post-COVID, we're going to probably make that live here in Vegas. So that's on my end. I don't know if you have something.
I would say from a GAAD perspective, if we extend it to the foundation, I think our signature event that way will be the GAADings, the awards. So stay tuned for information on that gala. It will likely not happen on the day of GAAD because to be totally honest, Joe and I want to make ourselves as available as we can be to do these kinds of appearances to bolster the efforts people have to hold different events. So I guess our request is get to us as early as you can if you know you're planning a GAAD event for next year. What is the third Thursday of May for next year? Do we know?
I don't know offhand, but when I ask you a next question, I'll look it up while you're answering. Congratulations, Emeke Olor, and I might have messed up your name, but from Nigeria, who does this great event. Congratulations to you guys, Jennifer and Joe. What would be the most memorable thing for you as GAAD celebrates the 10th anniversary?
First thing I want to say is May 19th, 2022 is the next GAAD.
That was fast.
Honestly, I don't want to sound too Hallmark-like, but the most memorable thing for me for GAAD celebrating its 10th anniversary is being physically in the same building, in the same space as my good pal, Joe Devon. We are typically not together for GAAD because it's a divide and conquer situation. But for the 10th anniversary, we are absolutely together. We have friends of ours who are here to celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day and the kickoff of the foundation. We are all obviously vaccinated and all that good stuff. Otherwise, we would not be together. But it means so much to be present with you, Joe. For this anniversary. So that's to me memorable.
And I can't wait for the GAAD's a gala event. It's going to be probably pretty insane, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Christopher Dobson, don't forget to acknowledge Hattie Rangin, UIUC and Do It, and Norm Combs from EAS, or ES,
Yeah.
EASI, sorry. Both of them are blind educators and had pioneered accessibility in the early days of online learning. There's the shout out.
Absolutely. I know Norm.
Oh, cool. Lainey, I did a talk for a global company this morning that's not ready for a public GAAD presence, but is so committed and was very excited about their internal GAAD celebration. I think the private events are part of the journey to public celebration. I agree 100% with that.
Ditto.
Then, pardon?
I said ditto.
Yes. Then we have Sandhya Sangvi, who does the follow-up. Is there a certification that you endorse for developers who would like to upskill?
There is an organization called the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, which is the credentialing arm for our profession in digital accessibility. So please check out IAP.org. They've got a web accessibility specialist credential. They also have another one that's more of a generalist. So if you are just starting out in the field of accessibility and feel like it makes you that much more marketable to have certifications similar to like a PMP or any other digits letters that come after your name, certainly check that out.
Thanks, Jennison. Christopher Dobson, thank you for all that both of you do for awareness and advocacy of digital accessibility. Thank you, Christopher. Then we've got Emeke Olor says, wow, great to hear about the GAADs. It's going to be so much fun. Leila Chouinao from the Helen Keller Institute. Thank you for the wonderful webinar. You all are both very authentic champions of accessibility, and we thank you. Well, I got to say that your organization is incredible, Leila. So thank you as well, and thank you for celebrating GAAD. And that was the last question, believe it or not. So, how do we? Anything else that we missed talking about?
One more thing for those interested, and you want to extend the celebration to Saturday. I am going to be leading the 7th LinkedIn hosted accessibility camp Bay Area that has 18 sessions. If you go to accessibilitycampbay.org, we are unique in the pandemic in where I do not have the physical constraints of the LinkedIn office in San Francisco, where I can only have 200 folks attend. More people can attend. We've got 18 sessions covering all kinds of different topics. Check it out. If you're interested, please register. Because by registering, you can enter potentially a contest. That's all I'm saying. Accessibilitycampbay.org. I want to wish you, Joe, once again, happy GAAD. Thank you for writing that blog post. Your dad's experience changed not only your life, but it changed mine as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennison. We got one more thing come in from Dora Maria, who just provided the URL, accessibilityassociation.org
Thank you.
So that's the URL. Thank you, Dora Maria. I will echo your sentiments. It's so great to be live and in person with you here. And I think that you should give out a GAAD tale as the winner in case you need any ideas. And yeah, so happy GAAD, happy 10th GAAD. Next year is going to be the very first anniversary of the GAAD Foundation. So get ready for that. We're going to have a new countdown. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to invite Natasha to come back online to close out the session.
Yeah, thank you, Jennison. Thank you, Joe, and everyone. Happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day and happy 10th anniversary. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. And this webinar will be available online. So we'll all send you an email so you can share it with your colleagues. Thank you again and have a great rest of your day.